So when you're designing something, whether it's your future plans in life or a product, do you ever think to yourself, man, there's just so many things that I need to be thinking about. I don't know which one to optimize for. Well, there is a design principle called 80-20, or otherwise known as Pareto's Principle. That gives you a lens that helps you kind of see the world for what to optimize for. And it basically states that in any given system, a small fraction of variables will have the biggest impact. Now, you don't need to get worried and worked up about finding the exact ratio. It's not always 80-20. It could be some variance in between. Disclaimer, not everything can be done in Pareto's Principle. It is just a lens. It is just something to kind of in your head say, have I looked at that analysis? Have I tried to optimize these variables? And once you get past that analysis, sometimes you'll find it's not best for the current situation, but a good rule of thumb is at least attempt to try it and see where you can get the best bang for your finite resource, which is your time. So this past weekend, I listened to an awesome podcast by Patrick O'Shaughnessy and Peter Attia, and I'll link it below. Basically, Dr. Attia gave us the 80-20 to life on what to do, like what's the minimum things to focus on to get the best output for our lives, and he broke it down into a couple things. So here's a good example. It's like out of everything you can do in your entire life, everything day to day, what you put in your mouth, how you move your body, all of these things. Look, everybody needs to lift weights. Disclaimer, I am not a health professional in that sense, so talk to your doctor and do all that stuff beforehand. But for the majority of people, he recommended doing 3 times a week at least of lifting some kind of heavy weights. You know, I personally do 5x5 kind of split. You can do any of the gazillion different things online. He said also sleeping is just critical. Sleeping greater than 7.5 hours. That's horrible for me, and it's something I have been having to work on forever, because ever since college, I don't think I've had a good night's sleep in ages. I was under the mindset that you can sleep when you're dead, and now in my 30s, I'm feeling that's not the best play. So that's something that I've actually this last week have been doing quite regularly, and I'm noticing a difference. I'm actually not tired all the time, so don't need to drink as much coffee if you are kind of awake. The other thing he said was some kind of sprint activity. Now, this isn't something for everybody. You know, sprinting is very, very challenging. If you have problems running, I definitely recommend you focus more on maybe like a bike and do some kind of high intensity interval training like Tabata. Ease into it. You know, just going from 0 to sprinting is brutal. So small dosage until you feel comfortable with yourself, but it's definitely, in my opinion, by definition, that's a beautiful application of 80-20 is high intensity interval training. You're doing the small minimum dose that gives you the biggest bang for your time input. And the last thing that Dr. Attia said to do, which he said he would never have done this in a million years if you talked to him a long time ago, was a mindfulness practice. Now, mindfulness and meditation and all that stuff is becoming super popular. It's been around for a long time, but he's the only one who said something that really resonated with me. He said our ancestors were almost always present. If you think about it, they didn't have to worry about the future outside of, say, in the agricultural days, you know, the next harvest. So you know, you're doing the day-to-day activities, just whatever comes up you handle, or even farther, you know, back in the Paleolithic era, you're more concerned about, can you even hunt and find the food? Can you gather the food? And am I going to get killed by a snake or a saber-toothed tiger or some kind of big beast that's going to come out of the woodworks and snag me? And in our day-to-day lives right now, most of us, especially in certain parts of the world, don't have to worry about that if you're fortunate enough. And that lets your mind wander And if you don't have a kind of practice that brings it back to find, the present, anxiety and all these other things can kind of creep up and overwhelm. And your mind is a powerful thing. And it has a life of its own sometimes. So meditation. So those 4 things, out of countless things you can do in your day-to-day life, if you did those 4 things consistently, you'll probably, for the majority, have the best return on that investment of that consistent practice. Dr. T also had some great things to say in a different realm than just health, and it went around driving. He basically said there are 2 different scenarios when you're driving that lead to the biggest probability of death. The first one being intersections. He said around 40% of people usually die in an intersection, and it comes from a T-bone. So somebody, when you're driving on the driver's side, you don't look left, that car running that red light just comes in and you're gone. So if you look left before you ever cross an intersection, you dramatically increase your probability of missing that T-bone. If you're the first car in line, be careful. And the second one was 50% of accidents happen on the freeway. So you have to play a game with yourself. You have to say, one person out here is trying to kill me today. I don't know who, but I have to tell myself to be on the lookout. Lastly, I want to give you an 80-20 principle in the product space. So we're going to look at something that you all have access to probably right now. What you're watching this video on is your graphic user interface, your GUI. Remember that old term, the GUI? If you look at the top menu bar, there are a whole bunch of these menus that are nested, but you only have a few at the top. And those are the few categories that then nest all the other options. So if you had all the options constantly displayed in row after row after row, it would be hard for your mind and your eyes to kind of find what you need at the right time. However, if you have it in categories, it makes it easy. Sure, it might be added steps, but at least you know where to go and where things would be located when you need them at that time that you need them. So that's just kind of a little example in the product space that 80-20 has been utilized. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thought Stack. I will definitely be trying to get one of these videos out every week on a new design principle that we should all be learning, because it's focusing on the fundamentals and making sure that they've been ingrained in our brains will definitely help us design better products, live better lives, and have more fun together in this complex system we call life. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe below. Let me know any 80-20 principles that you see in your day-to-day life. Leave them in the comments, and I'll definitely respond to them and check them out, and we can have an open discussion. So until next time, stay thoughtful.